So at this point, I'm going to hide these three dots and I'm just going to open up the editing functions if I need them. That just gives me more room in my text box. So what I do is I copy what I've done and then I post it immediately below. Then what I do is I start to rearrange the statements. By the way, sometimes students will give me multiple versions of a marked up argument. Do not do that. All I want is one paragraph, your original paragraph marked up, and immediately below that, the reformatted version with uniform language. Do not give me like a paragraph with just the statements and the numbering, and then a paragraph with just the labeling. You will lose so many points if you do that because I'm only going to look at the first version. In other words, apply everything to your argument once in one single argument markup. Okay, so now I'm going to start rearranging the statements. So I know that this is the point that I started trying to prove at first. So I'm wondering if this is the main point of all of the statements in here. In other words, it's the one towards which all others aim. That sounds like the definition for final conclusion. I'm not sure yet, but I'm wondering if it is. So I'm going to use my ability to copy and paste to visually place the statements in a different order if necessary to help me make a final decision about the labeling of the conclusions. Now, when you get to this part, you definitely have to, this is where you actually delete excess verbiage, and of course you should delete only that which you have already identified as excess verbiage per the definition of clarified argument. So while here you draw a line through excess verbiage so that I can see whether you were correct, so I can efficiently see whether you were correct in getting rid of some information. When you reformat, as you know from our examples where we did them by hand, it is in the reformatting where you actually don't include that excess verbiage. So here I'm going to get rid of it. So I have two premise, okay? So then that's a statement. I know that each statement gets its own line. I don't want this stuff. So like I said, this is a quick and easy way to start reformatting your argument. All of this has got to go. I'm going to leave the label. I don't want to get rid of the label there. All right, so now this is just the beginning. We know that when reformatting an argument, we have to number the premises and that we do not have numbers with a conclusion, even if there's more than one conclusion because we have a complex argument. We also know that we are going to start with the number 1 for the first premise in our reformatted argument. So right now, this 2 is for the statement up here, right? So it's the second statement up here. So we have to get rid of the 2 and write 1, colon mark. We also have to get rid of the opening bracket, and we have to type a capital letter T. The word free will refers to any action or choice or decision voluntarily made. We know that we have to use proper writing mechanics. If you forget one period, I'm not going to take off anything. Maybe not even if you forget 2 periods. It just depends on how many statements. Let's say your argument only has 2 statements. You don't do any periods, then I will take off points. Let's say you have an argument of 5 statements and you forget periods for 2 statements. I won't take off any points. Okay, so statement 3 in the original argument becomes premise what? 2 in the reformatted argument in this example. So now you're going to have my, capital M, wearing a mask is an action that corresponds with the respective definition. I'm not going to apply uniform language yet. I'm just focusing on the basics. So I know that this is some kind of conclusion. I'm not for sure yet, so I'm going to put question mark C because I don't know what kind of a conclusion it is. And I'm going to put, I've got that part, got a thing. A big mistake that some students make is not replacing commas or semicolons or colons that separate one statement from another in a sentence with a period. So make sure you do that, which is what I just did here. This was a comma. It was in the same sentence as another statement. And then I went ahead and got rid of that comma and put a period there. So this was statement 5, but in this reformatted version of the argument, it is the third premise. Here's another example of why you cannot always delete the word that. This is not a sentence fragment. It says that definition You need the word that because it's doing something what linguists call indexing. It's pointing to something. When it says that definition, it's pointing to what? Over here. That definition over here. Okay. Okay, rational inquiry. So let's go ahead and do this period. So then we've got this statement 6 becomes premise 4, at least for now. That we might change our mind about what the number should be. Oh, look, we have to get rid of this excess verbiage. Philosophers are experts. Okay, so we've got to get rid of this opening bracket. And then we've got this. We're not sure what kind of a conclusion it is. We're thinking it's final conclusion, but we'll put a question mark. Of course, you see that our conclusions have no numbering. I am wearing a mask of my own free will. So why don't you go ahead and get this far in your argument, and I'll do a separate video where we make final determinations about the labeling for the statements, final determination about where the premises are relative to any conclusions, and final determinations about uniform language.